Taco Bell, Taco Bell. Product placement with Taco Bell. And chorito nacho.
Burrito!
Yeah! What the?
Funk? You were gonna say funk, right? This is supposed to be family friendly, right?
I have many questions.
And I have many answers.
Okay, for starters, how do you know Kung Pao references?
Dude, that's your first question?
Okay, fair point. Who are you and what are you doing in my basement naked?
That's two questions. But alright, I'm Action Man. I'm in your basement naked because that's how you purchased me on eBay for this skit idea. Now can you please get me some clothes so I can get back to doing my job?
What exactly is an action man?
I'm glad you asked, live action me.
Aw, thanks, disembodied voiceover me.
Can we move on? My nipples are not enjoying this.
Okay, well then, Action Man is an action figure series from the 1960s that was released primarily in the United Kingdom as an answer to Hasbro's G.I. Joe franchise.
I never really liked G.I. Joe. I was more of a He-Man guy myself.
Oh yeah! Yeah, the big sweaty muscle guy always talks about his power. That explains a lot, actually.
Hey! Well, at least we didn't get lazy and reference the Captain N Game Master joke from the Shatterhand episode.
It's pretty much the same thing. There's masters involved.
Now, I'm not going to go too deep into all the different versions of this figure or how long it lasted, especially since our primary focus is the 2000 CG animated reboot TV show, which I only vaguely remember. Back then, it was all the rage to push traditional animated kids shows into this early CG era, where everything looks just, well, let's just say it hasn't aged well. It reminds me of shows like Reboot, at least visually, though that series was way ahead of its time. This looked dated, even when it came out. There were 2 seasons that ran from 2000 to 2001, with 26 episodes being produced. The title character, Action Man, also goes by not-so-mild-mannered Alex Mann, a professional extreme sports athlete. Alex was given the questionable gift of what one can chalk up to being his own Spidey sense, officially called the Advanced Macro Probability Factor, also known as AMP. This gives him the ability to figure out how to get out of a dangerous scenario in addition to warning him of what was about to happen. He's part of a ragtag team of like-minded heroes who are trying to stop Dr. X, an evil bad guy who wants to steal Alex's ability and transform the Earth's population into a bunch of cyborg mutant people, all while taking over the world. Action Man Search for Base X was one of 2 games released from this era, and it's our main focus point today. The Hasbro license was acquired by THQ, who hired Natsume to create a game based on the show. Released in February of 2001, just a few short months from the North American release of the Game Boy Advance, this Action Man game was a Game Boy Color exclusive. It's always been one of those assumedly awful bargain bin games that you wouldn't look at with a second glance, which is a shame, as it's a surprisingly fun game, based on an otherwise kinda lame franchise.
Before we move into the game, I gotta say, this cartoon's intro music, it's pretty arrogant. Greatest hero of them all, Action Man. Greatest hero of them all? Really?
That's right. Take it in. That's rock solid extreme marketing right there.
Oh, I remember. Everything was extreme back then.
Except for your love life, Loser says what?
What?
Exactly.
I have no idea if this show is any good, truth be told, but the game it's based on, well, it's an action platformer that reminds me of Mega Man in a lot of ways, but it provides a pretty unique take on the formula. There's 4 different stages on the map: jungle, snow mountain, mine, and ruins. When highlighting a level, you can press select, which will show 2 to 3 different goals to achieve. Each requires taking a different path in the stage to reach a different exit. But to get to the path, you'll need to unlock different items, weapons, or clothing, all of which are shown once selecting the level you want to play. Scrolling up or down, you have different outfits that you can unlock. You start with combat camouflage gear, but can later unlock Arctic clothing, climbing gear, or dive equipment like a wetsuit and fins. Then there's the ninja costume. Why does it look more like an Arabian style?
What? You've never heard of Arabian ninjas? Clearly you're not extreme enough.
I guess not.
Moving left or right, you can carry 2 items at a time, a primary and a secondary. This makes the game more linear in a lot of ways, because there's certain parts of each level you can only access with a specific pairing of items. For example, in the jungle, one of the hints you get on a mission involves going into caves. You won't be able to access this area without a flashlight. However, on this path, you'll later reach a ladder that's blocked off, and the only way to access it is to use the bow and arrow to hit the target to dissolve the stone. This creates a delicate retuning that can be frustrating unless you've played the game over and over again to figure out the right gear to bring. Much like Mega Man, you won't know which weapon takes down which boss easier, but the comparison ends there because in Mega Man, you can just pull up the start menu and choose something different. Action Man has more of an espionage vibe to it. He goes in with minimal gear to get the job done. I understand why they decided to make this choice, but at the same time, a select screening game would have made the experience much more user-friendly, instead of making me send Action Man to his death intentionally just so I can fix my loadout. Thankfully, pressing select lets the player cycle through these missions to try to piece the order of stages together with various hints. Feelings of repetition tend to creep in when not being able to advance to a part of a level that's inaccessible. The game will allow players to get back to the easier path to finish the level, but if it's already been finished, there's little point to try and beat it again. While that was frustrating, it at least helped me understand that if I wanted to move on, I needed something different to help me reach my goal. There was little confusion regarding utilizing these items and weapons to advance, and I would know almost right away if I was stuck and needed to change things up. I like this aspect of exploration in Action Man. I just didn't like the fact that I couldn't change my gear on the fly. Controls on Action Man work for the most part, though there are some very questionable things here. Moving is simple enough with the directional pad. He can duck and fire only 2 weapons, the Mine Disarmer, which doubles as a melee weapon, and the EMP gun. Other than that, the rest of the weapons can only be fired diagonally or straight forward, such as the Sonic Explosion and the bow and arrow. The Sonic Explosion is also used to destroy stones that are stuck on platforms. It kind of looks like a water balloon when it blows up. There's also a drill that can lower platforms and attack enemies, but only if they're right in front of Action Man. Because of the limitations on the weapons, it cranks the difficulty sky high in several situations where the EMP gun and Mine Disarmer can't be used. Angled shots become the main focus of the combat when using the other weapons, with the Sonic Explosion being lobbed at an arc or thrown like a shot put high into the air. The bow and Sonic Explosion both feel like they have a bit of delay when used, though it's not enough to really cause a major issue. Jumping is handled with the A button, and there's a delicate timing to it. Sometimes it feels like pressing A slightly before the direction made jumping more efficient. I know this is a little backwards here, but again, it wasn't enough of a problem that it crippled the game's jumping mechanics. Action Man's movements and jumping feel slightly floaty, and even when jumping off a high platform, he can be guided slowly down to wherever he needs to go. Because of this, I understand that some may feel the controls aren't as tight as a standard action game. Natsume's action titles of the past have always felt tighter than this. So I'm not sure where the problem lies, but it wasn't enough of an issue that it made my experience negative. I think the weirdest part of the controls was definitely climbing vines or using ropes to swing from place to place. Scattered throughout the various levels are ropes or vines. If you press up when encountering them, you'll grab onto them, allowing you to swing back and forth with the left or right direction. When jumping to the next vine, you have to press up again to grab onto it. It makes sense after being performed a few times, but I always felt unsafe about it. I'd also like to point out that the manual for this game doesn't even bother to list all the weapons, items, or suits Action Man can get, which is a real pain. Why wasn't this included? What was the point of having the manual if you can't tell me what to look out for? There's really not much plot to discuss in this game. Action Man has to stop Dr. X before he destroys the world with some sort of weapon. The manual gives a bare-bones explanation, but then again, I struggled to identify with the branding here to begin with, so having reasons for trying to enjoy this franchise is beyond me.
I'm sorry, dude, but your series is super lame. You're just not giving me any motivation to really play through this one.
How about to find my clothes, Or do you want your wife finding naked toys on the floor?
Wouldn't be the first time.
I'm all out of love. I'm so lost without you. I know you were right.
Was there supposed to be a punchline?
I don't know. Maybe you should ask Tifa.
Believing for so long. I'm all out of love. What am I without you? I can't be too late to say I was so wrong. I was so wrong.
Alright, this is going to a weird place. Can we just get back to the review?
Yeah, please.
After finishing each of the 4 stages, the game opens up a 5th stage, the secret base. This is only found after finishing the ruins' last stage, so there is a specific order that certain levels need to be finished in. The secret base itself is a 3-part mission, which then leads to the moon base, where Action Man blasts off to space in his brand new spacesuit. Between 2 stages of Moon Base 1 and then another final Moon Base stage, there's plenty of game within Action Man, like kind of a surprising amount. There's next to nothing when it comes to bosses in this game. There's a shark you have to trick into breaking a wall twice, and aside from that, the only bosses in the game are Dr. X's various forms. If you die on Dr. X, you get to try again, but if you lose all your lives, you have to replay the stage. Action Man definitely gives me vibes from back in the day when it comes to its challenge. Thankfully, the password system is extremely short, with only 4 characters required to enter a proper password. This makes it easy to pick up and play, and that's much appreciated for a handheld game. The type of enemies fought in Search of Base X is a variety of generic bugs and robots. I suppose it hits all the family-friendly demographics, but it would have been nice to see something a bit more human. You'll have to be light on your feet to avoid these projectiles, which are almost entirely the way enemies attack in this game. There's one enemy that looks like a giant armored robot that can be taken out pretty easily with either the drill or the mine disarming device, but he's impenetrable to all other weapons. Most of the enemies fall within 1 to 4 hits, so it makes for quick deaths. But at the same time, lining up shots and avoiding getting hit are the real challenges in this game. You'll spend a good chunk of time just running from projectiles as your primary defense. It's also worth noting that the game has an easy, normal, and hard difficulty mode available. I finished it on normal, and it was quite the challenge. I've tried it on hard, and there were so many more enemies, it was just too much. Everything looks pretty spot on for an 8-bit inspired Game Boy Color game. This 2001 title can be a little muddy looking in the darker tone levels like the jungle, but the earthy tones of the cliff level and the snow mountain look great here. There's zero personality to Action Man himself. Some of the outfits he can wear are just lacking in many ways, but they do the job they're meant to do, which is carrying the gameplay to the next level. Each level begins and ends with a very lightly animated cutscene that lasts for like 5 seconds on the screen. It's enough to tell me what's happening without dragging out the processing power of the handheld to focus more on the cutscenes. The animated style feels unlike the CG show it's based on, and has more of a Japanese take on a Western franchise, which I thought was pretty cool. It reminds me of Ninja Gaiden, without the talking. For example, check out the jailbreak scene specifically. It feels like it has more in common with an image from like a manga. Maybe that's just me though. I feel like the game visually shined brightest when it came time to handle certain lighting effects. Ironically enough, if the lights are shot out in the caves, there's a really cool dimming effect as you move through the spot where the lights went out. Aside from that, nothing really impressed me here on a visual level. Where the graphics fail to impress, the music succeeds. Composed by a Natsume legend named Iku Mizutani, who just happens to be my favorite game music composer, Action Man's soundtrack is slamming. Seriously, every single song is exciting, fun, and unique, and the entire time I played the game, I couldn't get enough of it. However, my biggest issue is that when Action Man moves to a new section of the screen, the music starts over, which really takes me out of the experience. I hate it when games do this. Action Man has unlimited continues, and each time you'll see this screen, you'll get to hear this amazing song. It's short, it's repetitive, and I love it. Hey, what are you doing in there, huh? You good? You need some tissues? Here's some more standout tunes in the game. Action Man's search for Base X was a lot of fun to play through. Despite not really caring about the franchise, the exploration of trial and error on stages was exciting, but I can understand why some people might find it cumbersome because of the forced loadout before entering the stage. The controls were tight, albeit slightly floaty, but I didn't seem to have many issues with them. Now, does this game represent the animated series well enough? I'd say no. The developers had a huge opportunity to somehow fit the AMP ability from the show into the gameplay. Does it reflect Action Man as a forgettable character? Absolutely. This isn't a deal breaker for me though, thanks to the overall package being worth the low price of admission. However, you don't need AMP to realize it's only a matter of time before people find out about this one. Hey, if it makes you feel better if the price gets raised, just blame me! Action Man is well worth playing. If you're a fan of action games from Natsume, this is a no-brainer.
Wow! Great job, man. You did it.
Aw, thanks, Action Man.
Actually, you didn't do anything. I'm still naked. You're the worst.
Hey, man, I don't want to take this from some generic naked G.I. Joe ripoff.
Oh yeah? Well, at least I don't have a crappy YouTube channel where I review a bunch of games with stupid skits. Later, loser.
I mean, he's got a point.
Thanks to all Patreon supporters, but especially the Morningstar Whip tier and up. They are Sam Schaefer, The Eighth Sign, Scott McElhone, Venthros, Great White North Presents, Nintendo, Bryce, Derek Demitter, and Trevin Adams. Your continued support helps fund reviews like this one, which would simply not be possible without the donations from Patreon members. I appreciate each and every one of you for continuing to help me make the content that you want to see. Classic goofy YouTube video game reviews. If anyone is interested, just $1 down gets you access to exclusive streams on Discord, stretch goals like Taco Bell food reviews each month, along with Director's Cut commentary for episodes, a free sticker, regular updates on upcoming reviews, and more. Check it out at patreon.com/dongled. I hate to sound like a typical YouTuber, but if Patreon's not your thing, but you still want to help get the word out, share this video on social media. Exposure really helps, so if you like these videos and think your friends will too, sharing it with them means a lot. Want more Dude You Haven't Played This Game? Check out the videos enclosed below. You can click on the left hand side or the right hand side for a totally different but totally awesome review. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Dude You Haven't Played This Game.